Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike.
Hey,
Mike,
Reed.
how's it going, sir?
Hey, any evening where I can be talking comics is a good evening for me, sir.
Always good to talk comics. Me and you have been on a bit of an X-Men binge lately. I know you and your son Jackson have been diving through the animated series in X-Men 97. We've had Deadpool and Wolverine hit theaters. They've done a big relaunch in the comics. We've had some cool Wolverine comics coming out with Chris Claremont revisiting the character. So a lot of good, solid X-Men content out there. But there is one recurring thing that you and me have seen, and I don't go often into the comment section in different comic websites because I find it's kind of an interesting thing. I like the YouTube piece where people have conversations, and I love our comments here. But Kate, I used to be somebody who go into a lot of comic book websites, comment sections. I didn't comment myself, but I would read
Yeah.
through X-Men because I loved X-Men. I was always a huge X-Men fan because of Wolverine. And what's so interesting is every single piece of X-Men content is so contentious within the fan base. I mean, it is like 10x any other kind of content that comes out. And one thing you and I've noticed, you made a comment to me about watching X-Men 97 and kind of some of the things that are there. We kind of wondered, is the X-Men franchise or the fan base at the very least fractured to the point that it's going to be really hard to make solid X-Men content that everybody loves? Because one thing that's popped up a lot, and it shows up in the comics, showed up definitely on X-Men 97, is this Magneto was right section of the fan base that seems to get more and more vocal as time goes on. I know X-Men 97 made that like a centerpiece of their storytelling. So we just thought we'd talk about what we think about that overall, what we think that does to the X-Men brand. Do we think it has a place? Do we think it's bad? What do we think they should do? Especially because with Deadpool and Wolverine, it's not hard to see the X-Men are probably coming to the MCU at some point, and they're gonna have to pick a lane. So for you, Mike, with the whole kind of idea that like Magneto was right and all that, how does that fit you as an old school X-Men fan? I know you used to love them back in the day. It's been a while since you read them, but how does that hit you personally?
Well, it's so right for you know division because it was the character was built that way. Magneto was designed to be um, he was designed to be understandable because Magneto was right in a lot of ways. And that was built into the character for a reason because people that build good villain characters will build in the fact that, yeah, they've got a point here, they've got a point there. And, Magneto was just, the perfect antithesis. And the relationship between him and Charles Xavier were so well balanced that it was great. Xavier's love for his friend, Magneto's love for their kind in general, and standing up for mutants. I mean, when you see another group of humans that's being put down, degraded, or hunted like they were in the X-Men, you need a hero to fight back. And Xavier was always the peaceful side, and Magneto was always the Malcolm X side. He's Martin Luther King, Malcolm X,
Yeah,
right?
that's been long, thought of as that's the kind of the impetus
And
behind it. Yeah.
that's the perfect duality for a million stories. So you have this great character who is built in. You can empathize with him. You can understand his passion to fight back and stand up for his people. You can definitely understand that. And then you have Charles Xavier who's trying to bring him back into the fold and rein him in. But then the atrocities that are committed on the other side call for this more powerful figure who has the ability and the moral design to go after and combat that and head it off head on. So, I mean, it's just perfect. It's really perfect. So, was Charles Xavier right, or was Magneto right? And that's the stuff of legendary comic books. when you can believe, fall for one side and then go over to the other. I mean, it's just endless. So yeah, so Magneto is taking the lion's share of the story probably right now. Of course, that's what X-Men 97 was all about. But there was always that balance in X-Men 97 where Xavier was reaching out to him, trying to bring him back. And it's just beautiful storytelling. It's great. It's a great dynamic.
I think the thing is, it's interesting to me about this entire thing. I think there's a difference between Magneto has a point and Magneto is right. And I think that's what's kind of been lost in that. One of the things I think it was Claremont that added it, making Magneto a survivor of the Holocaust is one of the coolest additions to a backstory for a comic book character. Because as you said, it does add so much depth to that character, pathos behind what he's doing. He's someone who's lived through the exact thing he's trying to prevent. And that does add for such a layered character story. I think one of the things is, like you said, Magneto, I think behind Doctor Doom and maybe the Joker is probably one of I think he's the third greatest comic book villain of all time. But he is a villain. Magneto's not a hero. And I think that's the part of where I get a little bit tired of Magneto in current fiction is I get it. He's got a point. He's right about some things. I wouldn't look at Magneto and say that you're wrong about everything. But this idea that like Magneto should just be hanging out with the X-Men to me is just ridiculous. If you look at the comic book history of Magneto, I mean, this guy's killed hundreds of thousands of people in comic books. This guy, there's a difference between I'll protect my kind and I will actively attack and kill people who don't respect my kind. And that's the thing that's always just so weird to me about the Magneto piece of things. He was a perfect character as he was, where it was a villain where you're like, I get it. I understand why he is what he is. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
I like him or I agree with him, but I get it. And I think that's the great thing that most villains have is you understand that. Magneto, for some reason, there's been this push to make him just like one of the team. He's just hanging out with the X-Men and they're just and it to me it ruins the dynamics of the X-Men a little bit in that well I love the character and it's never a bad thing to see Magneto on the page. Like yeah, almost every great X-Men storyline has Magneto. I think it ruins it twofold. I think one, the X-Men's character relationships are what always made that team work. The X-Men, the dynamics between Cyclops and Jean Grey and Wolverine and Storm and all that, the friendships, the rivalries, the relationships. A huge piece of it has been you've always had some of these mutants like the X-Force folks, the Wolverines, the Cables, who have been willing to go a little bit further and kill their enemies and aren't as merciful and aren't worried about being straight-laced superhero characters. And that always contrasted with Storm and Cyclops and Nightcrawler, who were more basically Spider Man, but they had mutant powers and they were trying to be a hero. And so Wolverine skewering three guys obviously hit them a certain way. What I
Right.
think's happened is once they're cool with Magneto, I don't want to hear any X-Men character giving Wolverine crap for anything. Like,
Right.
that's kind of gone. Like, and I think that's what's kind of happened is those dynamics get ruined by that. And I don't think they think that through. I think the other part is what used to be cool was when Magneto was working with the X-Men it was kind of a oh man things are real kind of scenario like apocalypse has come and it's like
Right.
okay now Magneto has to work with the X-Men they have
Right.
to put aside their differences and that made it feel grand it's kind of like whenever you saw Superman and Lex Luthor team up in a comic book you knew like man stuff has gotten real if these two have to work together
Right.
and I just think that dynamic of trying to make Magneto heroic or the main character or someone that the audience is supposed to look at and say, Magneto's correct. This is how we should do it. It's just a point of view that I don't understand. And that I know people talk about all the time. There was the MLK and the Malcolm X side of things. And what's interesting is Stan Lee has said that wasn't a direct inspiration. It's something that real world events kind of might have influenced his writing and things, but he never wrote it as one is one is the other. He's like, it probably influenced a bit. I just think the X-Men, the interesting thing is, and this is where I always kind of have a little bit of an issue with Marvel, and I'd be interested to get your take on it, is people try, I think, so hard to make the superhero universe relevant to the real world and I get it. There's elements that you can understand in characters. I understand why people who are part of marginalized groups would see the X-Men as their favorite characters and understand things from that perspective. but it's not a perfect analogy. It's you can understand a piece of it. What I think we have too much now is I think we have way too much of people trying to write like, no, direct real world, this is happening in 2024 into the X-Men. And it's like it kind of works, but at the same time, like no matter how much you want the X-Men to reflect the real world, we don't have a guy who shoots laser beams out of his eyes and a woman shooting lightning bolts and a guy controlling magnetism in the real world. And so it's never a perfect crossover. And I think that's kind of where we've ended up with some of this messier stories that we've had is it's one thing to put elements that are relatable. It's another to try to make it like a hey, let's directly integrate the two. What do you think kind of think about that of them integrating it a bit too much?
I think I'm thinking if for future stories, like if they were going to do another season of X-Men 97, one of the perfect conclusions to that story would be to where Magneto understands through his actions that he has become the very thing that he's fighting against, and
Mm-hmm.
really come to terms with that. Because ultimately, that's what he's going to have to come to terms with and understand that, he really has become the villain. I will say it was a weird pill for me to swallow when I first started watching X-Men 97 and Magneto's all chummy with everybody.
Yep.
I was like, this is so weird, but Xavier, bequeathed everything to him and he was supposed to go on and be in charge. And he was a flawed leader, absolutely. And I think the show showed that. Of course, Magneto's going to be a flawed leader in that regard, and but yeah, I think the story where the story could logically go is him actually coming to terms with what he's done and understand that that part of him, although he had good intentions or whatever, or was understandably upset and disturbed, you can't just go around. And Jackson pointed this out, like when he EM'd the entire planet.
EMPs the entire world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
EMP. Jackson said, "How many planes fell out of the sky that day?" You
Oh, how
know,
many people in hospitals
yeah,
getting surgeries? Well, like,
exactly.
how many
It's
mutants did he kill? We don't know who all his mutants. There were mutants on planes who probably died because Magneto EMP'd the world.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's
Jackson felt rightly so, that that was just irredeemable, a bridge too far. The only thing that could make it right was be, him coming to terms, and
I think that's the
understand.
thing that's happened with X-Men, and I think it's interesting in that sometimes people prove a point that they were trying so hard not to prove, and that like the Krakoa era of X-Men. It's interesting in that I was really hyped for that when that launched. Jonathan Hickman, I'm it's as close to being an absolute buy if he's on a book. If his
Right.
name's on a title, it typically I'm going to buy the comic. He kind of even lost me on his run of X-Men. I still bought, but it kind of lost me. The rest of those books went off the rails in a way I've never seen a comic line go off, in my opinion. And I know there's fans of that era, and if you are, good for you. I mean, honestly, that's I'm not here to demean anybody's fandom. For me as an X-Men fan, it's the first time in my life I wasn't buying X-Men anymore, and largely because the entire point of X-Men for me as a kid reading it was comic books to me have always been an interesting intersection of there's morals and lessons that you can take, well, not applicable because it's a world where there's Galactus and Doctor Doom.
Right.
There's a moral story that you can take from it. And what I always loved about the X-Men, it was that idea that even the people who are mean to you, even the people who are bad, you can show them a better way. You don't become like them. What's interesting is I always thought that was the point of the X-Men. The thing that was the comics got to is like, no, we are the monsters. And like that's the weirdest part that happened with the X-Men is you want to tell me humanity's bad for like persecuting the X-Men. I was normally on your side, but once I got Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde like gleefully killing people, okay, you guys kind of are a scary thing that humanity should fight back against. Like that's the part that's just so interesting is the whole thing that made the X-Men so admirable and as characters that ones I think that people loved is you understood they were heroes doing the right thing and they were hated for it and they didn't care because it was like, no, we will show you a better way. We will show you that we're not the monsters. We will, through our actions, show you to be the monster, not us. Instead, once you start going, hey, let's just kill people, and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well then, yeah, humanity does have a reason to be afraid of you. Like,
Yeah.
you can't go around and be like, oh, humanity shouldn't be scared of mutants, and how dare they persecute them when you got Magneto EMPing the whole world and dropping bombs on people. It
It,
just kind of
it's
ruins the story.
it's the whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing happening, by but that always played out in the X-Men by, the government or the powers that be going after them caused them to react this way, and then it becomes a self-perpetuating thing of violence, just like terrorism does in real life.
Right. Yeah.
It just self-perpetuates itself. But um, yeah, that was the guiding light of Charles Xavier, was to try and figure out a way to coexist. This show was pretty bleak in its prospects for any kind of resolution like that. But that's just the way it is. And I kind of think that if the X-Men were going to go forward, that they have to take the Xavier way. It has to be in some way or form. And you can have offshoots where you have the followers of Magneto, like they did
Yeah.
with Genosha, and that could be an offshoot for a story. But ultimately, in my mind, it has to recenter on the Xavier
Well,
way.
what was always so, I think there's two things, and I'll try to not tangent off on these too much, but what has bugged me more than anything with X-Men, I think in the last 30 years, 15 years more so, probably more in the last 5 or 10 though, there has been this aim to ruin Charles Xavier. Like they've tried to make him shadier. They have tried to make him not a good guy, really. And I absolutely hate that. I love the one thing I think the Fox movies got right. It's the best version of Charles Xavier.
Well, I
Xavier
mean,
is this lovable, affable figure who's a mentor, a leader. He rehabilitates people. He never gets. I think one of the best scenes in Wolverine and Deadpool, and I guess kind of spoilers for that if anybody hasn't seen it yet, but there's a scene in the middle of the movie where Wolverine confronts Cassandra Nova, and she's been trying to kill them the whole thing, and they have her finally where they could take her out, and I think she gets shot or she's wounded, and he's like, Deadpool's like, "Well, she just killed her." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do it." Charles Xavier, if he was standing right here, would never let me do that. He would ne And I love that it showed the impact that such a good man like that could have on a guy like Wolverine who sees himself as a monster. That Xavier's ability to be empathetic, to be someone who is teaching and caring and show kindness to everyone. I love that scene. I was like, man, that is what X-Men should be. And I hate
yeah,
how much writers now seem to want to portray him as naive or wrong.
yeah, and you had the great Patrick Stewart
Playing
playing
that role.
in,
Absolutely.
in and he was the perfect choice for that role. He did it so well. It always kind of bugged me about the original X-Men series that he had these like evil man eyebrows, and he had this really cartoony voice.
Yeah. No,
That
on the
always
original
bugged
animated
me.
series, yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's so not the character that I thought.
It's weird in that there does almost like the evil Superman thing. There seems to be this let's make Xavier shady, let's make him the bat, and I'm like that kind of almost breaks
Yeah, it
X-Men in a
does.
way, and that it is supposed to be, you have this force for good who
Yeah,
creates heroes and makes them these admirable people. I can't stand that portion of it. And I think the other part that it's interesting with me reading X-Men and that like I, people are kind of just weird sometimes. And it's like all these people who read it and like Magneto was right, Magneto was right. It's like if this figure existed in real life, he'd get rid of you. Like,
he's a
that's
monster, an
that's the part.
absolute
It's like
monster. Yeah,
again, it's just there's a difference between, and I think one of the best examinations of this I thought was Black Panther in the movies, where Killmonger was a villain where you're like, he has a point. He's not right. He's not doing the right
he's
thing,
got a point.
but he has a point. And it's like, that's a great villain. But you were never supposed to leave that theater going like, oh, I want to be Killmonger instead of T'Challa. And like you were
Well,
like, no, T'Challa could learn something from Killmonger, and Killmonger might have something that made him right. But I think even in that movie, I think that scene at the end in that fight where T'Challa's like, you became exactly what you hated. And I
yeah.
think it's just interesting because like you made the point of, Magneto would eventually have to realize he's become what people said he was. They don't even seem intent on doing that. They kind of almost seem like with current writers, like, no, Magneto's right and whatever he's done is justified. And it's like, that's just a weird approach to take, man. It's just a weird approach to take.
It really is because in a way he's become like the new Hitler. He's just eliminating you know huge swaths of a population. He's become the thing that he you know hated the most. And there, in the proper arc, there has to be a route for him to come back to that. But yeah, the other thing is, this is so prevalent in social media, in our ethos in general, where we're too quick to jump on the bandwagon for someone who has a point, whether it be whatever. But in this case, like Magneto, he has a point, but the way about going about it is all wrong. And there's a lot of that going on right now. So, I
Just,
mean,
yeah, societally, it's so interesting to see that portion of someone can say something you agree with, but
yeah,
you don't have to jump in full force and go, they're right about everything. Like I,
right,
that's the interesting thing is like you and I have been doing this YouTube channel for like a year, and it's interesting is like I watch a lot of comic book YouTube channels, and it's funny is I think there are a lot of channels that make great points about things that are wrong in comic books.
right.
Um, but like I'll watch a video and I'm like, man, that's great. Then the next video they go on a tangent, you're like, whoa.
Whoa, where did that come from?
I
It's
was
a,
with you on that first point. You kind
right.
of lost me here. And I think it's
I,
just
I
we
used
we
to I used to call Jackson in the room. Sometimes I'd be watching Ancient Aliens because I love that show. I love where they go, the different parts of the world, and I'm a big archaeology buff and love old civilizations and things like that. And so they would start out with this little nugget of something that you could go along with, but then the next thing you know, it's like it morphed into this whole thing with, oh, it was aliens, and
yeah,
and the lizard people, and you're like, whoa, how did you get the lizard people from?
that little small.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
But there's a lot of that going around, and just because, and I would always tell Jackson, just because they make a good point here doesn't mean that there's lizard people living underground that are secretly controlling the US government. That is just not a thing. But they
yeah.
had a good point to start out with. But we're not going to go all the way down into the tunnels of the lizard people with these ideas. We're not going to go there.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic point. I think it's just something where
Yeah,
everybody could just be a little more measured. And I think that's just maybe take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt and maybe give people credit sometimes when they say something that's right, but doesn't mean you got to become a fanatic for them. But
right.
it'd be interesting to see what you guys think below. What do you think about the current state of X-Men? I think it's been interesting. I've really enjoyed the first couple of issues of the new Jed McKay X-Men comic book that's been coming out. I think those have been pretty good and not perfect. It's not Chris Claremont's X-Men, but it's been pretty good. But I just noticed, man, there's a lot of contention in the fan base of people being mad about stuff. And I think for me and you, that's one of the reasons we don't really do the anger portion on here. We try not to be real negative on things. I think at the end of the day, everybody deserves a little bit of grace, even people who may have something that you agree with or don't agree with. Everybody deserves grace, and then hopefully we can always be a little bit positive on here about things.
Even Magneto, Xavier's still there for you, brother. He's waiting for you.
As always, folks, thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you think below. What are your thoughts on the entire kind of thing? We didn't really do a video on X-Men 97 either, but if you guys got thoughts on that as well, or in the comments, if you guys would want us to do a review on that, we'd be happy to queue it up. But let us know below what you think. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you. We'll catch you in our next video, folks.
Thanks, everybody.